everybody, welcome to CWK Facebook Live every Monday night at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. I am your host, Dan Z, sporting my very quarantine-heavy hair and excited to be here tonight with you on Monday evening. We've got an awesome show. There will be no video guffaws like last week, so thank you again for your patience with that. And I think I was just trying to run a lot of stuff at the same time. But I think we've got it ironed out, so we're going to see how tonight takes us. I am optimistic, of course. Again, I am your host, Dan Z. Very excited to be with you tonight on Coffee with Kenobi's Facebook Live. We have your top 5 clone trooper armor designs, not the characters, not the top 5 clone characters, because that's very different. This is purely the aesthetics of the armor. We've got the announcement of the Coffee with Kenobi book study, which I'm very excited about. And speaking of, thank you for your support of me on the Star Wars Show Book Club this week as I looked at Resistance Reborn. So thanks again to Lucasfilm for having me do that. That was a ton of fun, and I appreciate your feedback and comments for sure. Simbot, I think you're right, buddy. I think I did miss a spot. This is what happens when you're quarantine. You got a lot of time on your hands, and you just kind of get with a canvas like this. I'm constantly experimenting, you understand. So very, very good. So we've got the CWK book study that I'm going to announce here after we do our top 5, and I'm also going to have my assistant come down later in the show and help me pick the next movie in our Coffee with Kenobi commentary. So David, thank you so much, man. It was fun. That was a great experience. I'll talk about on the regular show or maybe on pour over, but essentially the behind the scenes stuff is just as exciting as the actual show itself. So tonight, we had all of your great comments on the commentary that we did for Star Wars A New Hope. That was a ton of fun to do, a ton of fun to bring to you. And so people have been saying, are you going to do another feature-length commentary of the film? Which if you haven't seen it yet, you can certainly go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/coffeewithkenobi, and you can listen to the entire commentary for free of Star Wars A New Hope, hosted by myself, Tom Gross, and Corey Clever. We just watched the film together, and it was great. I liked hearing their comments. There's something about that audience aspect of things that I think is really, really fun. And we learn from each other, and I hope that you learned some great stuff about New Hope too. So traditionally what we would do is now we watch The Empire Strikes Back and then Return of the Jedi and all that good stuff. Yes, yes, Greg, from New York. But I don't think we're going to do that. I am going to pick randomly with my assistant. I'm going to pick one of the next Star Wars movies, and that's going to be the next commentary. I want it to be fresh, so that's what we're going to do. So without further ado, so again, we have all that to look forward to, so thank you again for joining me on Coffee with Kenobi's Facebook Live. And this week for the actual show itself, it's going to be a blast because we're going to look at the clone troopers and the armor. Tyler says that commentary was a lot of fun to listen to. I love the long stretches of, and it breaks up. But there's moments where we don't say anything because we're just kind of enraptured by the film itself, which is, of course, totally makes sense. No figures were harmed in the making of this video. That's true. That's true. Jeff, thanks again, man. It was a ton of fun. A ton of fun. I love it. I love it. I can't wait to see what the next one's going to be. So let's do it. Let's jump into our top 5s. Our top 5 Storm Clone Trooper designs. This was tricky. It's not like you can find a definitive example of Clone Trooper armor StarWars.com has a list of pictures of a bunch of them from the Clone Wars cartoon animated series. There's all kinds of things. Mason and I looked at a Star Wars visual guide by DK that had a lot of pictures of the clones. So that was cool too. You got to think about the Clone Wars from the comics, the animated series, and from episodes 2 and 3, because they're very different. The clones from episode 2 look drastically different than they do in episode 3, because in episode 2, they've kind of got that shark fin down the middle kind of a thing. So that's pretty cool. Yes, the Coffee with Kenobi Poetry Slam Edition. Actually, well, we will get to that for sure. But I really think you're going to like it. I really think you're going to like it. All right, so my first clone that I picked for armor designs is, of course, the ones that we met in the Ahsoka Tano arc. I don't know if they're called, I think they're Tano Company, perhaps. But I mean, when we first saw the image of this at San Diego Comic-Con, I was completely blown away by it. I love the idea that they took the markings of Ahsoka and put it. It was the ultimate tribute to her. Of course, it added to the poetry and the tragedy of what happened after Order 66. But before we got to that point, of course, they were very much loyal. So it's very ironic but powerful and just a beautiful design. So that's my number 5. What about the rest of you? What are your start listing off your top 5 favorite clone trooper armor designs as well? Again, this one is neat because it's very personalized to a specific Jedi Knight. So that's really, really cool. All right, so Tyler says, Anakin's 501st Legion, I love the blue accents. I love that too. In fact, Tyler, I remember when the episode 3 action figures came out, the 501st clone troopers were really, really difficult to find. At least they were for me. And I just love that they were blue because that's my favorite color. Just really, really cool. And David says, such a wonderful tribute from Dave Filoni. I completely agree. It really said a lot about how much he thought about Ahsoka and then what the clones thought about her as well. Minta says, the Tano armor was one of my favorites. Yeah, it's just a great one. It's just a great design. I hope we get to see some merchandise. I hope we get to see a Black Series figures of those too. Blake says, the Ahsoka Trooper for 5 is almost an honorable mention. It added a lot to the episode. Fair enough, yeah. See, these were harder to rank as far as my favorites, like my top 5, because there are plenty of them that I could have put on this list that I actually didn't. So those are good choices. So again, that's my number 5. My number 4 is, I believe this is Commander Wolf, but I just think the armor here is just really, really cool. I love the markings. I love the gray and the white. There's something very nice how they complement one another as far as that goes. And I just like how I just like the shape. It kind of looks a little more powerful in a way. And like the markings go down the shoulder and the pauldron, that kind of thing is really, really cool too. Oh yeah, Mason Z says, my favorite clone trooper is Rex's design. Good choice, Mason Z. I love that. Rex's design is a really, really cool, and that almost made the list too. It's the blue. I think that's probably why you like it. I know I like it so much as well. So thanks, buddy. LJ says, Plo Koon's 104, love the gray and white with the wolf art on the armor. Oh, yes, duh, of course. There you go. Exactly. There's something really, really cool about that design. It's very striking. I think, again, when you can take something very, very basic and just completely hone that and make it individualized in such a way that it complements. Well, of course, this is a big tribute to Dave Filoni because he loves the wolf aspect of it so much, as Mita points out. So pretty cool. I forgot that it was part of Plo Koon's battalion, which is really neat. David says, the camo troopers with Yoda in episode 3. I was tempted to pick those. This was a hard one for me, though, because I had a hard time separating the armor from what happened, and so I'm breaking my own rule there, which is, shame on me for that. But the camo armor is sharp, and it was very sharp in contrast, and because of the green, it was very striking. The 91st Recon Corps, they look awesome. Most of to refer to Battlefront 2 for some of my answers. You know what, Blake? There's a lot of great ones in Battlefront. A lot of great ones in Battlefront. Mason and I have certainly found those too. Tyler says the Coruscant Guard, the red against the white, just really pops in a cool way. Ah, good call, Tyler. Those do pop. Those are really, really slick for sure. Craig, good to see you, buddy. Craig, we're just talking about our top 5 Clone Trooper armor design, so feel free to weigh in. Craig, of course, is an awesome Star Wars fan and educator as well. Okay, so LJ says the clones on Kashyyyk. Sorry, I don't know the battalion. That's okay. I don't really know all the battalions off the top of my head as well. Some of these you had to kind of look up. There are so many. One thing I did realize that we should do in the future is do first order Stormtrooper designs because we didn't really do that before. Because I found a lot of really good ones when I was doing some research for this. Kashyyyk, yes, Kashyyyyk. Don't worry, no spelling test tonight, so you're safe. You are safe. All right, so my number 3 is the ARC Trooper designs. Very similar to Rex that Mason mentioned earlier. But the ARC Troopers, again, have that striking. In Battlefront, you can get them in the red. You can redesign. Mason and I discovered that you can change them in Battlefront to be gray or blue or red. But I found the blue design here. I just like the look. I love the individualized handheld blasters that they have. And they're just really, really sharp. Really sharp. Greg says the 501st Tano edition overall physical look is sharp. Agreed. Very much agree with that. That was my number 5 pick. Really, really good one. The Bad Batch means it picks up. I almost was tempted to pick one of those too, but I didn't. Minta says the Bad Batch armor was amazing. Each one was made to fit the uniqueness of the squad. And isn't that cool? That's very individualized. I really hope we get figures of them. Tyler also says the Bad Batch armor, easier to lump them together. I just love how you look at one of them and already know what purpose they bring to the team. Very cool. Yeah, I'd be interested to kind of see which of the Bad Batch ones really work out as well, as far as which ones you would actually pick. David says he loves the ARC Troopers. Agree. Craig brings up the 501st ones as well. There's something subversive about light blue being the color of the troopers invading the Jedi Temple. Yeah, and that's kind of what the Emperor does, isn't it? He just kind of subverts the natural order of things. So that's a good call. Blake says the 104th Battalion. I love the gray and white with the wolf logo. Very good. Blake definitely knows his battalion numbers. LJ also says the Bad Batch armor. I love the black and red. It almost looks like the power armor from the Fallout video game series. Well, that's a good point. That's a good one. Yeah, I would say as he follows up Wrecker's armor. Does it? Wrecker's armor does. For sure. Does everyone remember when Tom and I reviewed the first episode of The Bad Batch for season 7, live from IdeaCon in Chicago, what we both said our favorite clones were from The Bad Batch? So if you remember, go ahead and put them in the comments below, if you would. Cool. All right, so my next one is right here. These are some pilots from the Clone Wars. I just like the look. I like the Republic logo there on the side. The fact that they're pilots and they've got, you can tell that they're just sort of a different shape, because this armor does a different thing. This helmet does a very, very different thing. It is designed for flight, for space flight. And so it has a different sort of purpose and aesthetic, and it comes through very much in that. I just love it. I thought it was really, really sharp. And a nice kind of a contrast between the regular clone trooper armor that we typically see as well. So, again, keep letting me know in your comments of the ones that you like. Greg says Kashyyyk trooper, that camo look was pretty neat from Revenge of the Sith. I agree, and again, it was something very unique. The armor very much sticks to the climate or the atmosphere that the clones were actually at. Tyler says Republic Commandos. I sure wouldn't want to challenge one of them. They'll take you out. Yeah, they're really powerful in Battlefront too, as Mason and I know. They have a very unique kind of I don't even know what this is called. I think I just did a Vogue for all of you out there. But they have a really cool sort of aesthetic. They look a lot different than regular clones, I think. Indeed, good sir, indeed. Minta says the clone ARC trooper design for sure. And then Blake says the 41st Scout Battalion Yoda beheaded one of them in episode 3. The camo with the Scout Trooper look was so cool. Oh yeah, those are cool designs. I mean, we could have just went just through episode 3 alone and found plenty of examples to choose from. One thing I don't like is some of the ones that have kind of the longer masks that look very much like snow trooper helmets, which I'm sure that was sort of the impetus for that. I wasn't as crazy about that one as much, but for the most part, they really knock them out of the park for sure. Very good. Okay, so that was my number 2. My number 1 was kind of up at first. I forgot to take it off, but it's just the classic clone design. I guess when I think about it, this is what I did for my Stormtrooper list. But I just like the clean black and white, the lines. It's just very basic, but just very, very much traditional in a way that when you first introduce the clones, that's what you see. You don't start seeing the variants until later, and it's just great stuff. Greg says, classic Attack of the Clones plane trooper. Yeah, so we had Mason and I were really thinking about that. Long helmets are Phase 1 helmets. Yes, correct. They have more of that dorsal fin look to them as well, for sure. Minta says Rex's Phase 2 armor was her top pick. Another excellent choice, to be sure. There are a lot of great ones. If pressed, do you like Stormtrooper armor better or Clone Trooper armor better? I think we'd have kind of a mixed reaction from people, because a lot of people have different reasons why they like them, kind of what they grew up with and what speaks to them. Tyler says ARC Trooper 5s. He's got such a cool helmet design and armoring. Maybe biased because he's my favorite clone. You know, Tyler, I like 5s' design as well. He kept coming up in my searches today. Another really excellent choice. All right. So, anybody else want to weigh in on their favorite clone trooper armor before we move on to the next phase of the program tonight? Again, thanks everybody for joining me tonight on Coffee with Kenobi's Facebook Live each and every Monday night. Dan's here, happy to be with you to get you thinking about Star Wars and just have some fun. I think that's really important. Blake says, the 501st just the Legion number means so much and have such a heartbreaking role, Revenge of the Sith. They did. They very much did. Absolutely. All right, so I think that's probably going to do it for the top 5 to the clones. Throughout the conversation, if you want to weigh in on them, feel free to do so naturally. I'd love hearing your feedback. And again, that's one of my favorite things about this is that we get to really have feedback. Of course, on the main podcast, Coffee with Kenobi, going on 7 years now, if you can believe that. Your feedback is important and encourages integrated into the show. Your emails, your MP3s, your opinions, we want to include them into the show. Sometimes that takes a little bit of time to get to the backlog of emails or to get to them and put them in the show. But on Facebook Live, your feedback is instant. We get to communicate right away, and I love that so much. It's a really great aspect of all of this stuff. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go on to the next section, the CWK book study, and we also are going to, as promised, we're going to announce the next movie that we're going to look at for our feature-length commentary. So my assistant, if you're out there somewhere, I need you down in the CWK studio so that we can make our pick. As I said at the top of the show, what we're going to do with this one is going to be a little bit different. Instead of going A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and then going 1, 2, 3, and 7, 8, 9, we were going to do something different. To keep it fresh, what we're going to do is my assistant and I have put the names of the 10 remaining Star Wars movies in a hat, or in a coffee mug, actually, that Mason selected. And we put them all here. Hey, look, he's here right now. This is our assistant, Mason Z. Yeah. How's it going?
Good.
How's the show going so far?
Great.
Good. Good deal. Good deal. Thanks for winning. All right, so here is the mug we're going to use. This is from the first Galactic Nights event that we did in April 2017. So you and I have put all the movies in here. Whatever one we pick, that's the next one we're going to do our feature-length commentary of. You've already seen A New Hopes, or listened to A New Hopes, I should say. So this is going to be the next one. You ready, buddy?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's do it. Just grab one. All right, what'd you get? This is episode 8, The Last Jedi. Well, cool. Thanks, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll see you later.
Okay.
Okay. The Last Jedi. How about that? I'm surprised. Are you? That's gonna be our next feature-length commentary. The Last Jedi. There it is, right there. Trust me, it says episode 8. So cool. I'm excited about that. That's one of my favorite movies. I guess you could say it was polarizing for some people. Personally, I just think it's great fun. All right, so here we go. What we're gonna do now is this is the intro of what I've called our Coffee with Kenobi book study. Yes, of course, I was on the Star Wars show and I did their review of Resistance Reborn. But even before that, I kind of like the idea. Hi, Mary says hi, Mason. Mason says hi, Mary. Tash says it'll be a good one. Such an underrated movie. Yeah, thank you. I'm excited. I'm very excited to see it, especially because myself, Tom, and Corey have very different opinions of it too. Yes, Corey is going to have a lot to say for sure. All right. So, what is the Coffee with Kenobi book study, and how is it different from regular book studies or book chats or things like that? Well, a couple of years ago, I was feeling kind of a backlog of a number of Star Wars books to read because as like many of you, I get a lot of the Star Wars books, and sometimes it can be a little overwhelming or a little daunting, especially when you have to review them and talk about them on the shows. And sometimes it can pile up. So what I did a couple years ago is when Phasma came out and Leia, Princess of Alderaan by Claudia Gray, I took the books and I broke them up into chapters, and each week we all read them together and then we talked about them. So we're going to do that here too. But so we're going to take random Star Wars books, and I'm going to say, hey, this week we're going to read chapters 1 to 10 or 1 to 5 or whatever it is. And then the next week on Facebook Live, there'll be a segment of the show where we actually talk about the book together. I'll give you some insights. I really want this to feel like you're sitting in my classroom and we're studying a Star Wars book together. That's really kind of my hope, my impetus for all this stuff. And I have a lot of people who say to me, I'd love to be in your class. I'd love to see what it's like to be a part of you teaching Star Wars. Well, this is your chance to do that. This is your chance. Earlier in the school year, before the quarantine happened, I had to be there late at night for something for working at concessions. And there were a bunch of parents and students from another school who were looking into my classroom window to see where the Star Wars teacher taught. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. How flattering and nice that they think that much about it. They'd heard me speak at a public event before the Rise of Skywalker, and I thought maybe this is a thing. Maybe we need to help people feel like what it would be like to experience Star Wars in the classroom setting. So that's what we're going to do. So the first book we're going to do is, and I apologize if there's a glare, The Rise of Skywalker novelization. This book, I feel like a lot of people have it. If not, you've got time to get it. It is, of course, by Ray Carson, who I interviewed for StarWars.com. And so we're going to read that. Let's see. The first the first 3 chapters is 44 pages long. So why don't we do that? Let's read. Chapter 1 actually starts on page 5. So this is how much you have to read, students. Not very long. So let's read chapters 1, 2, and 3 for next week. Bring your notes, bring your questions, and what's going to happen is I'm going to walk you through key points of this novel, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to break it down. I'm looking forward to it. Yes, you are getting homework, LJ. Now, you can just show up and try to wing it, but the teacher will be watching. I'm just saying. Well, Greg, thanks, man. 7 years is great. So again, I'm very, very excited about that. And what you can do right now is, well, don't start reading yet. I want you to stay here and hang out with me for a while. Because then my wife gave me her old Kindle. Exactly, Tyler. See, it's all working out for you, brother. So again, read the first 3 chapters of The Rise of Skywalker for next week. We're really going to break it down. I really want you to feel like you're enjoying Star Wars in a classroom setting. It's going to be a ton of fun. Mary says it's a very good book. So much more information. Looking forward to this. Thank you. I am too. I really feel like it breaks things down in a beautiful way. I'm really looking forward to doing it. Now, you can't say here, but I've got 3 shelves of books, and I've got a number of shelves over here, plus in my attic of even more Star Wars books. So we have plenty to choose from. There is no doubt about that. Okay. Minta says, I love that book. I literally read it one day. Yeah, it's a nice read. It's heavy, but it's not heavy, if that makes sense. And we'll talk about that as we go through and study it. Honestly, they're not always going to be canonical, and they're not always going to be fiction either. I think next, the one after we do The Rise of Skywalker, I'm thinking probably about a month per book, or maybe a little less, depending on how long they are and how quickly we go through them. I don't want it to feel like homework. I want it to be fun, and I want to get through some of these books. So after this, I'm kind of thinking we might go to the Legends line and maybe read Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which I've never read before. It is the first piece of fiction ever written for Star Wars, and George had written it in case The Empire Strikes Back was never made. Well, he didn't write it, but he agreed that for Alan Dean Foster to write it. And it's definitely very different, but I'm kind of thinking after The Rise of Skywalker novelization, we're going to tear into that. So that is my idea as we go along with this. If you have any ideas of other things that you want to look at or to study or to consider, please let me know. I would be happy to entertain any thoughts that you have about this as far as the book study goes, how you want me to approach it, what books you want me to read, or we could read together as a Coffee with Kenobi Star Wars family. Yes, Legends books. Yes, yeah, the Legends books, I was struggling with some of them, but for the most part, I really like quite a few of them, so we're going to have some fun there. Tyler says Matthew Stover's Revenge of the Sith novel is the main thing I've read. I love that book. You know what, Tyler? That's in my list too. That one's pretty close to literary as far as some of the language goes, so we will definitely get to that one at some point as well. So we've got The Rise of Skywalker, the novelization of Revenge of the Sith, and then Splinter of the Mind's Eye. So that's 3 ideas so far. If you have any other ideas, feel free to bring them in. I also think, well, thank you. Mason is awesome. Mason, thank you so much, buddy. You did a great job helping me to create and prepare our list for the feature-length commentary. So thank you. I appreciate that very much. Very good. Okay, so again, we've got 3 ideas for books for the book study. Again, they don't all have to be fictional. You can certainly do nonfiction as well. I am still very much digesting The Making of The Empire Strikes Back by J.W. Rinsler, and I absolutely love it. I think it is so much fun. So much fun. Okay, well, I guess we're going to go ahead and go on into our next segment, if that works for everybody. Again, as this is going along, feel free to jump in with any comments or questions. And speaking of, it is time to ask DNZ. You can ask me anything about Star Wars. What do I think about certain episodes from the Clone Wars, from Rebels, from the Tartakovsky Clone Wars, all that good stuff. From the movies, comparing movies to each other, anything Star Wars related or podcast related that you want to ask me, this is your chance to do it. The old Legends, Tales of Star Wars books were fun. They were really cool. There are some new canonical ones that kind of took a similar machine. They're short stories that take different aspects of the Star Wars saga and talk about them, break them down, and I had a lot of fun with those as well. So what questions do you have for me about Star Wars? Are there ever sticking points in the movies or in the books that when you experience these stories you think, well, how does that work? Or how did that happen? Or what do you think about the Force? Or anything like that. There are some times when Mason and I are talking about Star Wars, well, he'll just bring up something really, really smart that makes me think about Star Wars in a different way, and I love that. And that's what this is about. Help us look at Star Wars differently. Give us your certain point of view, and I think that would be fun. So Landon says, who is your favorite character not from the movies or television? Hey, Landon, good to have you, buddy. That is an excellent question. Favorite character not from the movies or television? Originally, I would say Kanan, but he's not. But he is actually, his voice is in The Rise of Skywalker, and he is from television. So that's good. I think it probably would be Dr. Aphra, honestly. I think she's fascinating. I think it's cool that she's so popular. She was able to sustain a Star Wars comic book series when she has no movie or animation pedigree so far. So she would be a really, really good one to choose from, I think. Who else? Who else would be what about you, Landon? Who's your favorite character not from the movies or television? I mean, definitely Aphra is the main one that I think of for sure. From the Legends line, it would have been Thrawn before Rebels, because I think he's pretty interesting. The Nograi are fascinating race, but again, now they're a part of the canonical Star Wars too. Blake says, how do you feel about Skywalker being more of a title now in canon over a family name, which I just heard Pablo Hidalgo break down? Let me read that again. I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. Skywalker being more of a title now in canon over a family name. Well, if I understand correctly that, and feel free to direct me to what Pablo said. It's a title. Pablo might have been, and I certainly want to speak for Pablo because I'm not sure. I didn't see it, but Pablo probably is talking about the fact that Rey is taking on the moniker of Skywalker, so it's kind of taking on the legacy of what it means to be a Skywalker, which I think is really, really cool. But feel free to explain a little bit more, Blake, in the comments, and I'll be happy to weigh in on that. So Minta wants to know, do you ever think we'll see any Jedi from Legends groups enter into the canon universe? It's a good question. I feel like they use the Legends line as sort of a canvas, and they pull from it. Very similar to King Arthur or other mythologies, where you have these legends of these heroes, and you take them and you insert them into your stories as it fits. I mean, I'm certainly learning more and more the more research I do into the world of Star Wars, that no ideas are left on the cutting room floor. Whether it's George Lucas or Ralph McQuarrie or any of these creators, there are different things that they use, sometimes even subtly, that they still use in other aspects of Star Wars. And I think it's really, really cool. So yes, Meet, I do think it's definitely a possibility. Tyler says Cal Kestis. I do like Cal Kestis a lot. That's a good one. Quinlan Voss is great. Brian, I love him. It's too bad that we didn't get to see the Clone Wars episodes with Quinlan Voss and Asajj Ventress together. Of course, we got that in the novel Dark Disciple, which is a combination of 4 Clone Wars episodes into one novel. That might be a good one to break down. That's excellent as well. Lance says, Rael Alvaros from Master and Apprentice and Dooku Jedi, almost very fun and interesting, so I'd probably say him, yes. And he's got this awesome Texan accent, which who knew, right? And he's very interesting. Plus, he learned from he learned from Dooku and then from Qui-Gon, so there's a great connection. That's a really good one, Landon. Really like that. Tyler says, who is next on your list of Star Wars actors you want to meet? Well, it's Mark Hamill, for sure. That's a good one. I've been very, very blessed in my life. I've met George Lucas. I've met Harrison Ford. I've met Carrie Fisher. I've met Billy D. Williams. I've met Ian McDiarmid. I met pretty much all the cast from Clone Wars and Rebels. But it would definitely be Mark Hamill. I think he would be awesome. He'd be really, really awesome. Jeff says, what would you like the next movie to explore? Honestly, Jeff, that's a great question. The next movie I want to be something that is fresh, something that is original, something that adds to this mythology and complements it. One of the things I liked about Rogue One is it added to A New Hope, but it was still very much standing on its own, even though they intertwined. The last arc of the Clone Wars interacted nicely and blended beautifully in with Revenge of the Sith, but it didn't do it at the expense of the story, and there were no cheap gimmicks. One of the things that I didn't love about the movie versions of The Hobbit was they would refer to the One Ring that was going to, of course, be a major part of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and almost kind of obnoxiously winking at you. I feel like the story should assume that the audience is intelligent enough to make those connections on their own. Easter eggs are great, but whatever story you tell, it has to stand on its own. And honestly, I'm at peace with there not being any Skywalker things for a while. I mean, it'll be great to see Rey and Finn and Poe when they're older, and I hope that we get that someday, like we did with the others. But I think it's totally cool to explore other aspects of Star Wars. Again, my own caveat is that make sure it's a story that needs to be told, that should be told, that actually adds to the story. Blake says there was a YouTube video called Disney Confirms the First Jedi was a Skywalker. I watched what I got from Pablo. Okay, well, what new Star Wars video game would you like to see made? I want Battlefront 3 so we can see the Mandalorian characters and Star Wars Rebels characters in it. That's what I want, for sure. But Blake, back to your question. Anything on YouTube, I shouldn't say anything, but there's a lot of stuff on YouTube where you don't necessarily know the validity of it or where it's coming from or if it has an agenda or a purpose other than just the beauty of celebrating mythology and story. And if I know Pablo, and I know Pablo reasonably well, I think if someone's quoting Pablo and taking him out of context in YouTube, it's probably out of context. So I wouldn't trust anything that Pablo's may or not have said unless you actually saw him say it and you know the context of it. I think that's probably how I would go. How do you feel about the Mandalorian behind the scenes series on Disney Plus? Brian, I love it. I think it's amazing. I love that every week it's a different aspect of story and storytelling. And I think it's very rich and mind blowing. And of course, the second episode, the last 8 minutes, when Dave talks about the Phantom Menace and connecting it to Return of the Jedi was a master class and it's just absolutely brilliant. It's just so cool. So I love it, Brian. I'm assuming you do too, but definitely let me know what you think about it. I do get to see them a little bit before, and the next one coming up is really cool. Tyler says, I feel like when shows have no faith in their audience, Gotham was awful about that. Oh, I never like when shows have no faith in their audience. Yeah, I agree. Or they just don't understand. See, one of the things I love about Lucasfilm and Disney is that they do have a vested interest in this because they like the story or they wouldn't be working on it. And something that I think sometimes is forgotten is that these stories help feed their families. Like, they don't want them to be bad. They want them to be well received. But if you're going to tell a story that you think the fans will like instead of the story that you think is the best story as a creator, then I think there's a problem. If I'm a creator, I tell the best story that I believe in, that I want to tell, that I think adds to the mythology. If you're going to create hoping that people like or don't like it or to try to appease them, I don't think that's the way to go. Again, that's just my perspective. But if I'm telling a story, I'm going to tell a story that I think is the best story that I can tell. You hope people like it. You hope people buy it. You hope people talk about it, and you hope it adds to things. But if you're going to do something hoping that people like it, or just to try to get people to like it, I don't think you're going to get your best out of yourself creatively. That's just my personal opinion for sure. Blake says, I thought seeing the Baby Yoda behind the scenes would kill the magic, and it didn't. Such a good docuseries. I agree. It's fascinating. This is something I had to show to Mason too. Just how they make it, and the child is a very expensive, $5 million puppet, and they made it come to life. They made it come to life very much like Frank Oz in a small but impactful group did when they made Yoda come to life, for sure. Brian says, I've noticed that whenever Dave Filoni talks, the rest sit and listen in absolute awe on his viewpoint. I agree, Brian. And you know what else is striking is that when he talks, he has very much kind of a reserved nature about him when he is talking about this stuff. Like, oh gosh, should I go too far? Did I get too nerdy? Well, like, no, that's what we love. That's what we love. We think it's great. He definitely is one of us. I've been very fortunate to talk to him, gosh, 5, 6, 7 times. And he's got this really charming way. Like, he likes to command an audience. But when I think when he's with his creative peers, he very much is sort of, honors what they have done to get to where they're at, because he's a storyteller, but he's come from a different background, and now he's entered the world of live action for a couple years now, and he's great at that too. So we're very fortunate to have that aspect of things. It's really, really marvelous. Good. I love these questions. Definitely keep them coming. If you don't get one in tonight, or you think of one between now and next Monday, write it down or save it, and then when the next Ask Dan Z section comes up, let me know, because I'd be happy to answer anything that I can, give you my perspective, my certain point of view for sure. When will Filoni be on CWK? Well, Blake, he's sort of my white whale. I joked with Matt Martin that he was my white whale, but Dave is a very, very busy guy. He has been on twice. It's always been like live remote type stuff, where one time Mike Rondo, or Mike Audette, I'm sorry, I haven't talked to Mike well, but I sure think the world of Mike, and he's been very busy doing his own thing. But he interviewed Dave for us at New York Comic Con one year, and then last year when The Mandalorian, before it came out, we had I was invited to fly out to California. I wasn't able to make it, so I sent my brother-in-law, and he interviewed Dave and Favreau, on behalf of Coffee with Kenobi. So he has been on, but I haven't got the chance to sit down and ask him specific questions. I mean, I have like on convention floors and stuff like that, but never formally. But believe me, it's definitely something I've wanted to do. It's something that is always in motion, and I do think that someday it will happen. I really do. So I appreciate the support. Started GoFundMe for have one. I have $3. There you go. Hey, no money necessary, brother. I'm sure that when he is available, I think that would be an awesome thing. Do you think the future of Star Wars is on Disney Plus for the next few years? I do, Jeff. I absolutely do, because it's pretty hard. The nice thing that we have going for us is that with everything with COVID-19, obviously no filming's been done on a lot of stuff. But season 2 of The Mandalorian was already filmed. So that's still going to come out when it's supposed to, because all that post-production stuff and the special effects can be done on computers remotely. So that's good. And they've got other stuff planned. It kind of depends on how the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months break down as far as what people can do and what people can film. But I definitely feel like we'll get a couple more Disney Plus shows or series before we get the next Star Wars theatrical film. And honestly, how these shows do could impact what the next movie is that we see. I would assume they've got a lot of stuff in the pipeline getting ready for us, for sure. Daniel says he can't wait for Kenobi. I agree. I agree very much, Daniel. Believe me. Coffee with Kenobi. There you go. I think we should be on set, don't you? I mean, I think that would be awesome. I said every podcast ever. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. And the fact that Ewan McGregor is going to be a part of that is pretty spectacular, pretty special. Again, thank you so much, everybody, for your questions, for your support, and all that great stuff. Be sure to join us next Monday night at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time for Coffee with Kenobi's Facebook Live. We will be going over the first 3 chapters of The Rise of Skywalker. So that will be fun to break that down and talk about that with each and every one of you. And also next week, we're still going to do our top 5s. For our top 5 next week, I think it might be kind of fun to say, what is your favorite Star Wars scene. Now, it doesn't have to be from the movies. It can be from a book. It can be something animated. It can be from a comic. But give me your top 5 favorite Star Wars scenes. And moment of dialogue, an action sequence, whether it advances the narrative, whether it's just funny, whether it's interesting, whether it's exciting. The advancement of the mythology doesn't matter. So give me your top 5 scenes. You're gonna have a lot of homework, LJ. First 3 chapters of The Rise of Skywalker, and then bring your top 5 favorite Star Wars scenes. That is going to be an absolute blast. Speaking of absolute blasts, while you are pontificating on your Star Wars favorite scenes, be sure to pre-order the Star Wars book written by myself, Pablo Hidalgo, and Cole Horton, which comes out October 20th, 2020. I am very much excited to share that with you. Obviously, we're still a couple of months away, but it's going to be something that you're really going to find interesting, I believe. And it's going to change, I don't know if it's going to change the way you look at stars, but it's certainly going to add a lot to the canvas. It's a series of curated essays that myself, Pablo, and Cole did. Can't wait to share more about that as we get closer and closer to the release. That is going to be an incredibly, incredibly fun experience. Before we wrap up, we do have a couple more questions here. Blake says, how did you meet Jim Hill? I listened to him for years. I'm so surprised to see you with him on Looking at Lucasfilm. Yeah, well, he and I have been doing that show for 2 years now, but honestly, Blake, he's great. I've always been a huge fan of his too. And then I heard that he was doing a Marvel show with Aaron Adams, and he'd been on Coffee with Kenobi, I think, twice. So he and I would email sporadically, once in a while. And I said to him, hey, by the way, if you ever do a Star Wars podcast, I would love to co-host with you. Haha, wink, wink. Not thinking he would take it seriously. He emails me almost right away and says, hey, if you're serious, I would love to have you. You're the Star Wars guy that I'd love to have. So boom, and then we became fast friends, and he and I actually met at the Star Tours, The Last Jedi media preview face to face, but he had come to Coffee with Kenobi's first ever podcast appearance, or as far as celebration appearance, at Celebration Anaheim. But that's basically in a nutshell how he and I met. Minta says it's going to be a tough one. So many incredible scenes. I agree. David says, cannot wait. I can't wait either. It's going to be an absolute blast. Again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining me tonight on Coffee with Kenobi's Facebook Live every Monday night at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. It's always a blast sharing with all of you Star Wars and hearing your thoughts and your feedback. It's great. Looking at Lucasfilm is my second favorite Jim Hill show. First is Fine Tuning. Well, whether that's true... Well, that's true or not, I think Drew will get a big kick out of that, naturally. That is a fun show. I love it. Jeff says, thanks. Hey, man, thank you. Seriously, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, LJ, Minta, David, everybody, Blake, Greg, Daniel, Jeff, Tyler. I'm scrolling through Brian. Hope I'm not missing everybody who commented. It's just Landon. It's just been great. Minta, it's been great talking with each of you tonight. I love my Star Wars family. It's so great. Everybody have a great week and weekend. Be ready for a great, important Coffee with Kenobi this week coming to you in a couple of days. Until next time, be safe. Take care of yourselves physically, mentally, and spiritually. And remember, this is the podcast you're looking for.